we are looking at purchasers. So we're going to be going through about almost, I think, about 80 different products. We'll take them one after the other. Then when we finish that, we're going to go through about 50 countries in Africa, one after the other also, just basically analyzing the issue within those countries and what we should look out for, what should be of interest to us in those countries. So today we are looking at purchaser. Where are the markets in Africa? So for example, petroleum products, even though many of us might not be interested in petroleum products, but that's one of the products that is sold on the continent. Petroleum products. From this chart, you can see the importers and the exporters. Remember, we're looking at the purchasers. So our interest really are the importers, petroleum products. Nigeria is a major importer of petroleum products on the African continent. Nigeria imports 17.3% of the total import. The market size of petroleum import in Africa is $57.6 billion. $57.6 billion. That's the total market size. So there's a very huge market in Africa. There's a very, very huge market in Africa as far as these products are concerned. Petroleum products. Where is the market for those that want to export petroleum products? Maybe if Nigeria starts refining, or for those listening to us from other parts of Africa, where are the market? Nigeria, then Togo. I'm wondering why Togo is up to 10% and South Africa is 8.42%. Why is Togo consuming so much petrol? Is this petrol not escaping to some other countries in West Africa? I hope it's not escaping to some other countries in West Africa. Egypt, 7.7%. Kenya, 5.2%. Libya, 3.7%. Who are the major seller of petroleum products in Africa? Algeria. Thumbs up for Algeria for the level of value addition. I know Algeria, either Algeria or Angola, imports petroleum products from Nigeria. So seeing this quantum of export of petroleum products from Algeria is amazing. So Algeria exports 16.9 billion. Look at the total import. Can you see that there is a lot of gap between what Africa is exporting and what Africa is importing? Because Africa is unable to meet up with its demand. Africa is unable to meet up with the demand, and hence the need for import. But this is what AFCFTA is supposed to do for us. For us to be able to do as much as possible a huge export of this product to different African countries. This is the opportunity. So when I see this opportunity, I say, look, there's huge opportunity in AFCFTA. Maybe by the time Dangote refinery is done, Nigeria might become a major exporter of petroleum products, probably next to Algeria, or probably doing much more than Algeria on the African continent. Probably next to Algeria, or probably doing much more than Algeria on the African continent. All right. So if you look at the trajectory of petroleum products, it's been growing. There has been growing demand because of the increased use of cars, because of the increasing population that means more people need to be transported. All these are leading to increase in the usage of petroleum products in Africa. If you look below, you will notice that the duty on petrol in Africa, in a lot of countries in Africa, is high. And that is the benefit of AFCFTA. Under AFCFTA, you see all these countries that have purple, light purple, and purple color, deep purple color. All those countries are going to allow a number of these products to be coming into their country duty-free. Duty-free. The next one is cars. This is where Innocent is doing very well. Who are the major exporters of cars in Africa? South Africa and Morocco. Can you imagine? South Africa and Morocco share everything. The little Nigeria is there, little. South Africa and Morocco share the total market, the total exports from Africa. Africa import cars worth 16.8 billion and export car worth 11.8 billion. No, someone said, is there still growth of petroleum product despite COVID? No, this data is as at 2018. You know, the data for this year will be available towards the end of the year or next year. So this data is at 2018. That gives us a sense. We expect for most of the indices, we expect it to have increased by now for most of them. So if we are already doing this in 2018 and our population is growing, that's a sign that there is a huge opportunity in those space. If we are doing this much now in 2018, that's a sign there's an opportunity in that space. So this data is as of 2018. 2019 will be available later in the year. And then by next year, the one of this year also will be available. Okay, so it's interesting that Africa is importing cars worth 16.8 billion. But Africa is producing car worth 11.8 billion. Who are those producing the cars? South Africa and Morocco. No wonder Morocco wanted to be part of ECOWAS. And the reason seems obvious now. Morocco knows that Nigeria is one of the major importers of cars, and they want to take advantage of that. So at some point, Morocco wants to be part of ECOWAS, and I think Nigeria stood against that. They want to be part of ECOWAS so they can enjoy the benefit of ETLS. So they can enjoy the benefit of ETLS. Because they want to enjoy the benefit of ETLS, they want to come into ECOWAS rather, you know. But of course, like I said, Nigeria stood against it seriously. And reason being that Nigeria is going to see Morocco as a major competitor. If you look at the major top economy in Africa are Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco, Algeria, sometimes Angola, but Algeria and Egypt. And you will notice, look at the major importer of cars in Africa. Is it not the same thing? Nigeria, Algeria, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt. These are the top economy in Africa. These are the top economy. And they are the major importer of cars. Why? They have more money. They have more money than many other African countries. And that tells you a lot about GDP. You will notice every major importer of every product on the African continent revolve around those same people. Look at it again. Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt. Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt. So the same set of people or countries are the major importer. And like I said, the reason is very obvious. These are the major economy. They are the ones that have more money. And that's why they are the ones that are able to. So, and that's why the GDP of countries and the rate of growth of that GDP is critical in you looking at the market, you think there's potential. So I think Innocent have a lot of chance in all these other countries, Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, Kenya, and a number of other countries in Africa. So if you look at this chart, you will notice something. Someone said, is this info about export and import within the continent? Exactly. You are very correct. This info is about export and import within the country. Yeah, thank you very much. It's about export and import within the country. You know, under AFCFTA, some people will be importers, some people will be exporters. Under AFCFTA, some people will be importers, some will be exporters. So if you want to be an exporter of cars, your competitors are South Africa, Morocco, Uganda, Egypt, and Kenya. 57% of export from Africa is done by South Africa. 41% of export from Africa, of cars from Africa, is done by Morocco. 0.1% is done by Uganda. 0.08% is done by Egypt. 0.05% is done by Kenya. So major exporter of cars in Africa are two countries, South Africa and Morocco. And the major importer are South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and Nigeria. And I said these are the major economy also on the continent. And you see the demand for cars. You know, when you see the demand for petrol growing, you are wondering why the demand for car is growing. That also explains the reason why the demand for petrol is growing. The demand for car on the continent is growing. That's why the demand for petrol also is growing. So there is a consistency right there. Wheat. Now, we are coming to what a number of us can play in. Those of us not in oil and gas. Wheat. The import of wheat in Africa is 13 billion. And the export of wheat from Africa is 13.5 billion. What is important to note is that majority of the export of wheat from Africa is not going to other African countries. Because Nigeria imports almost $1 billion of wheat, and mainly from the United States. Nigeria imports almost $1 billion of wheat, and mainly from United States. Mainly from United States. Mainly from United States. So who are the major importer of wheat? Who are the major importer of wheat? Egypt, of course, Nigeria. What is ETLS? ETLS is ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme. ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme. That is a free trade agreement within the West African sub-region. That is a free trade agreement within the West African sub-region. It's called ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme. It's the same scheme that we are looking at in the continent. AFCFTA and ETLS are driving towards the same objective. The reason, the goal behind AFCFTA and ETLS is pretty much the same thing. The reason why people are interested in ETLS is the same reason why we are interested in AFCFTA. The same reason why they are interested in ETLS is the same reason why they are interested in AFCFTA. Why? They are interested in the same because it creates a free trade area where international trade can take place. It creates a free trade area where international trade can take place. Free trade area means the barriers, trade barriers are collapsed, are pulled down. Trade barriers like tariff and non-tariff barriers. Tariff and non-tariff barriers. All of that are pulled down as a result of free trade agreement. So we have a free trade agreement in ECOWAS, we have it in East Africa, we have it in Southern Africa, we have it in Central Africa, we have it in Northern Africa, but now all of them are together, brought together under one umbrella called the African Continental Free Trade Area. African Continental Free Trade Area. And 54 countries are signatories to that organ. "54 countries are signatory to that account." 54 countries are signatory, to that account, to that agreement, sorry. To that agreement. All right, so exporter of wheat, South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, Tanzania, Sudan, Morocco, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. South Africa, Egypt, Tanzania, Sudan. And you notice the major exporter in Africa is South Africa. The major exporter in Africa is actually South Africa. The major importer in Africa is Egypt. You will notice, just like Nigeria also, some countries produce and then they export. So Nigeria imports a lot of wheat, but like I said, the wheat import of Nigeria is actually from outside of Africa. So for those farmers looking at growing wheat and exporting wheat, there is a $13 billion market for you on the African continent. And of course, I expect the trend line of wheat import to grow, to continue to increase. I expect the trend line of wheat import to grow, to continue to increase. I expect the trend line to continue to grow, to continue to increase. And the reason is because population growth in Africa is amazing. Population growth in Africa is amazing. You know, I've said it severally on this platform that the reason why population of Africa is growing is because there's lack of employment. There is a correlation, a direct correlation between employment opportunities and population growth. The more the women are in the boardrooms, the less population growth. The more the women are in the bedroom, the more the population growth. And the more women will be in the bedroom, more than boardroom when there is unemployment. And that's exactly the case of Africa. So as a result of this, we have population growth. So anything food, there is a huge opportunity in Africa. If you check the African GDP, I try to check the GDP of African countries, and I look at the consumption component of the GDP of African country. And when I look at the consumption components of the GDP of African country, I realize that more than 40% of most African country consumption is household consumption. More than 40% is household consumption. And it's been said that an average household in Africa spend about half of the earnings on food. In some countries, it's about 70% on food. So we basically are living for survival. So, and that's an advice for anyone that is looking at AFCFTA. If you are looking at doing anything under AFCFTA, please note that one of the major opportunities under AFCFTA is personal care products, food, drugs, things that human beings need for survival are going to give you huge opportunity in Africa. Things that human beings need for survival, fast-moving consumer goods, food items. People doing processed food. You know, there's agri revolution going on in Africa. A lot of countries are taking farming and agri very seriously, and that's a good one. But what we must also do is to add value to most of those agri products. Okay, let's move on to another product. Packaged medicament. Packaged medicament. That's medicine that is already packaged. Medicine, not the bulk that they are repackaging in Africa. Not the bulk that they are repackaging in Africa, but rather the packaged one. Who are the major? Can you see something? Can you see what I'm seeing on this chart? Can you see? Africa is not doing enough of export of drug. We are not producing enough drug in Africa. We are importing drug worth 11.5 billion. You know, recently there was a webinar on AFCFTA in Africa. On a webinar on pharmaceutical trade in Africa. And from what I'm seeing on the screen, this is amazing. So anyone within the space of medicine, you have a huge opportunity in Africa. But you know that medicine also have a lot of regulation around it. So for you to be able to take medicine to any country, there is a regulatory program you have to go through for you to be able to do that. But this is interesting for me, really. And to think that with all the pharmaceuticals in Nigeria, Nigeria is not on the radar for export. And I can understand that. I can understand that because the population in Nigeria is so huge, and we have to do a lot of import of drug from India. India is supplying, I think, about 50 to 20% of the world need for drug Indian is the pharmacy of the world. Indian is the pharmacy of the world. But Indian is doing everything possible now to not just be a pharmacy of the world, to also be the factory of the world in producing so many things China is producing, because a lot of people are running away from China. There is economic distancing from China. Countries are giving their citizens incentive to leave China. To leave China. With ETLS, why is Ghana preventing Nigeria from trading? No. Now, ETLS is for export and import. It's not for setting up businesses in that country. So, Nigerian issue in Ghana is issue of people, Nigerian settle down in Ghana to do business in Ghana, and they are basically trading in Ghana. They are basically trading in Ghana. And Ghanaian made a law to kill foreign businesses trading. They want only foreign business to do the big business. So you need about $1 million to register a business in Ghana and be able to register in Ghana. So they want all the small micro businesses having shops. That's the one that is affected. There are other Nigerian businesses in Ghana that are not affected at all. Because those businesses are in the upper end. The Glow, the bank, Zenith Bank, GTB, Dangote. The big guys are not affected. It's the traders. And the concern is that we are more aggressive than them, so we are taking business away from them. But for me, it's not in the interest of Africa that we are fighting ourselves. It just does not make sense. I hope they have set up a council to look into that now. I'm hoping that that council will be able to do what is necessary, because, I mean, how do we make a law against your neighbor? How do you make a law against your neighbor? You know? But, I mean, that's West African politics anyway. I trust that with the ongoing Dangote refinery, our petrochemical industry will provide exactly. So we expect a lot of offshoot of Dangote refinery. Different things are going to come out of there that will be of immense importance to a lot of businesses in Africa, actually. So, packaged medicine. Who are the largest importer of drugs in Africa? South Africa, 17%. Egypt, 13%. Algeria, 9.5%. Nigeria, 9%. These are the top. And to think, you know, it's amazing for me. Does it mean Nigeria are not sick, or we are already almost becoming self-sufficient in drug? Either of the two. Obviously, maybe because we are self-sufficient in drug, because we are importing less than South Africa. That's amazing. These are countries that Nigeria is times 3, times 4 their sizes, but they are importing more drug than Nigeria. Most probably because Nigeria have a lot of pharmaceutical producing locally. That's the only explanation I can give. Because I know Nigeria, I mean, we can't say we are not sick, or we go for herbal medicine. We are taking agbo. Nigeria is taking a lot of herbal medicine. We don't buy. we don't buy a lot of packaged drugs again. I'm just thinking aloud to know the reason why we are not taking a lot of that. Can you see? Can you see? Jude said, I think we take more of herbal. Can you see? Can you see? I'm right. I'm right. Basically, most of our imports into this area come from outside of the continent. No, what I mean is that, no, look at this. The import is actually from all over the world, and the export is export to the world. But the reason why the data is important to us is, if Nigeria imported the world import of Nigeria, world import of drugs by Africa is 11.5. So this import is not import from other Africa, and this export is not export from other Africa. This is the total value of total export of Nigeria for packaged drug, and total value of total import of Nigeria for packaged drugs. And that's just, for me, I think there is a huge opportunity in the pharmaceutical space in Africa. An awesome opportunity in the pharmaceutical space. This is great. The gap is so wide. When we are producing export less than 1 billion, and we are importing 11.5 billion. Someone said the high-end drugs are taken majorly by the elite who go abroad to take them instead of local pharmaceutical providing them. My thought. Daniel, I agree with you. It's possible because, I mean, they are the ones that probably have money also to buy. All right. So I also expect, so I'm not surprised that the trend of drug import is increasing. I'm not surprised that the trend of drug import is increasing. Someone said, I think it is local manufacturer supplying more. I think so also. You know, I mean, I think so. That's my thinking, actually. I think a lot of our manufacturers have specialized in the majorly imported drugs, and they are producing them locally. Analgesic, anti-malaria. I mean, the most product that a lot of, I mean, drugs that we import regularly, vitamins, multivitamins, and the like, a number of, I think we are producing locally. I think so. I also think so, Ifeoluwa. So the trend line in African import of this drug, or the volume of trade of this drug, is growing. Like I said, anything human being is consuming, I will be shocked if the volume of trade is reducing in Africa, because our population is growing at an alarming rate, and our government don't seem to be interested in ensuring that there is a plan to take care of those people. And this is across Africa, actually, including Nigeria. We need to do something very, very seriously about this issue, because as our population is growing, it's increasing the rate of poverty. You can check up what is called the World Poverty Clock. World Poverty Clock will show you how many people are going into poverty in different countries per minute. Per minute. And you see the people who are running into poverty. It's amazing, you know, and we need to do something about it. Because, and that's why the demand for drug will increase, the demand for food will increase, the demand for a lot of that will increase. Who are the competing exporters of drugs that Nigeria must look out for? Egypt, South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, and Mauritius. Who are the major importer of drugs, packaged drugs in Africa? South Africa, Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria. Do you notice a trend? I've told you, the major importer of most products in Africa, major importer of most products, not all products, are the top economy. Nigeria, Algeria, South Africa, Morocco, and Egypt, the top economy in Africa. Gas. You know, it's interesting that Africa is producing a lot of gas. See the volume of gas export in Africa. This is thumbs up. The gap is wide. The gap of gas import and gas export is wide and huge. So, and I'm not surprised anyway, because, I mean, all these countries are producing oil, so they have gas also. And the major exporter are Nigeria and Algeria. Algeria taking over 45% of the $28 billion, and Nigeria taking 30% of the $28 billion. Angola 5.1, and Egypt. So if you are a gas exporter, which market should you be targeting? Egypt, Morocco, South Africa. I think the competition for gas trade will be fierce and ferocious in Africa, because we are really producing much more than we are importing. So the demand, unless, you know, because, and another thing is that most of these gases, a lot of our gas are exported to countries that use them. Why? Because of the underdevelopment in Africa. Because of the underdevelopment in Africa. I think, seriously, that we are not using a lot of gas in our household, for household item. We are not. We seem to be doing more of, kerosene, firewood, sawdust, and the like that we are using. Because, I mean, with the population in Africa, we should be consuming a lot of gas, but we are not consuming a lot of gas at all. Let's move on to other interesting products. Raw sugar. Raw sugar. I'm glad to see a lot of countries in Africa producing sugar. But it's so painful Nigeria is not on the major producers or exporters. Even though Nigeria have many states that can grow and produce sugarcane. Do you know Nigeria imports sugarcane? We'll soon get there. Nigeria do a lot of import of sugarcane. The import of sugar done by Africa is $4.1 billion. Who are the major importer? Algeria. So if there's anyone who is looking to export sugar in Africa, the market includes Algeria, Sudan, Egypt, Nigeria, Morocco, Somalia, Djibouti, Kenya. I know there are people also joining us from other parts of Africa. I mean, a number of them joined before, so at least you can see. So that's why I try to ensure that it's not just about Nigeria, so they can also see what they can export to Nigeria, even though this is being transmitted from Nigeria or streamed from Nigeria. Algeria, Morocco. So who are the major exporters in Africa? South Africa, Egypt, Mauritius, interesting. Morocco, interesting. Zambia, Algeria, Mozambique, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. So who are, and you can see the trend line also is going fairly high. Maybe it's reducing because people are more conscious of sugar now. There is a reduction. Since 2012, the trend line has been down from 2012, maybe because of the increased campaign against sugar. Sugar is used in many products, but consuming sugar sincerely is a major challenge for health that we need to concern about. Who are the competing exporters? South Africa, Egypt, Mauritius, Morocco, and Zambia. They are the competing exporters. These are the countries to beat if you want to consider export of sugar. These are the countries to beat if you want to consider the export of sugar. These are the countries to beat if you are going to consider the export of sugar. The next product we are looking at is a very interesting product. And that product is palm oil. You know, palm oil is a product that is worth looking at very critically. It's a product that is worth looking at very critically. Why? Because of the opportunities that we have in this space. We have a huge opportunity to trade in palm oil in different countries in Africa. And to think that the import of palm oil is $4.91 billion, whereas the export is $545 million. You know, for me, this gap is just too wide. Just like the drug. This gap is too wide. But it's a good news. Why is it a good news? It's a good news because of the opportunity is given to us. It's a good news because of the opportunity that is given to us. The opportunity being given to us is humongous. Why? Because the opportunity given to us is humongous because a lot of African countries can actually produce palm oil. And Nigeria being, you know, and to think that Nigeria was a major producer of palm oil before now, but today we are nowhere to be found. Nigeria was a major producer of palm oil before now, but today we are nowhere to be found. Why? Why are we nowhere to be found? We are nowhere to be found because we have left our first love. A product that, you know, you will have heard the story of how what's the name of this country? Malaysia came to Nigeria to pick up the seed. How Malaysia came to Nigeria to pick up the seed. And Malaysia and Indonesia today are contributing almost, I think, about 80% of the consumption of palm oil in the world. I think about 80% of the consumption of palm oil in the world. So there's a very huge opportunity in palm oil. And I will spend a lot of time on palm oil because of the fact that it's a quick win. It's a low-hanging fruit that we must consider. It's a low-hanging fruit that I must consider. And you know that palm oil only grow within 10 degree up, 10 degree north and south of the equator. Palm oil only grow, palm kernel or palm tree only grow 10 degree north and south of the equator. And Nigeria falls there. And a number of other African countries fall in that bracket. That's why the like of Ghana can produce, the like of Nigeria can produce, Cote d'Ivoire can produce, because of the belt where most of the palm oil or palm trees are in the world. But it's also sad to know that we cannot even produce, we're barely producing 10% of our import. So I think strongly for almost all African countries, palm oil is something that must be done. Palm oil is something that must be done. Do you know that for this palm oil, now look at this. The trend of production of palm oil in Africa is relatively flat. Between 2007 and 2018, the peak was in 2008, when we produced 2.5 million tons. 2.5 million tons. Countries with the highest production in Africa include Nigeria. Nigeria, as of 2018, Nigeria, followed by Cote d'Ivoire, followed by production now. Production. Nigeria, 739,000 tons. Cote d'Ivoire, 426,000 tons. Congo, 410,000 tons. And all these three together constitute 65%. So 65% of the production of palm oil in Africa is from Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and Congo. Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and Congo. Someone said, how can we export it? It depends on the way the buyer wants it. Some are retail, but some are bulk in drums. Some are retail and some are bulk in drums. Some are retail, but some are bulk in drums. You know, so the 60, if that, but Nigeria is nowhere on this list. And I can understand why. I can understand why because we probably are consuming most of them locally. So people export it in kegs. People export it in kegs. In fact, a lot of exports are done in kegs. The 20-gram keg, 25-liter keg, that yellow keg. A lot of them are done in keg. That's for those doing bulk. Some are done in drum. So what some people do is they put this tank, GP tank. They put about 3-4 GP tank in a container and then use a pumping machine to pump the oil into the GP tank. The empty GP tank will be put in a container on a truck and they will pump the oil into it like that. They will pump it into it like that. So some use, like I said, that's for those doing bulk. But for those doing retail, those are the people that will put it inside the regular 1 liter gallon, 1 liter container, or 2 liter container, or 5 liter container. Those are people doing retail. But whichever way you look at it, there's a huge, huge market for palm oil in Africa. Huge, huge market. Do you know the interesting thing? It's not just the palm oil, even across the value chain of palm oil. Across the value chain of palm oil. Like I said earlier, that palm oil is grown. So the top 10 producers of palm oil in the world, top 10 producers of palm oil in the world, Malaysia, all these countries are within the window I told you about. Within the window. 10 degrees north south of the equator. 10 degrees north south of the equator. Number 1 is Malaysia. Number 2 is Indonesia. Number 3 is Nigeria production. Number 4, Thailand. Number 5, Colombia. Number 6, Papua New Guinea. Number 7, Ecuador. Number 8, Ivory Coast. Number 9, Costa Rica. And number 10, Honduras. So Nigeria is number 3, and Nigeria is not an exporter. That's very bad. Very, very bad. Very, very bad. Nigeria is not an exporter. There's a huge opportunity in this space. Amazing opportunity in terms of volume of export of this item. Amazing opportunity in terms of export of this item in Nigeria. I mean, from Africa, rather. This product have food application, cooking oil, industrial frying fat, margarine, and all of them can be exported in Africa. Ice cream, salad dressing, cheese, oleochemicals, surfactant, personal care, cosmetics, agrochemical, lubricant, toilet soap, industrial cleaning, printing ink, then biogas and others, biodiesel, charcoal, fertilizer, briquette. All these are products from palm, from the palm. So when you look at Africa as a whole, you will realize that this product is component of beauty product, and we're going to look at beauty product in Africa, component of cheese, of butter, of margarine, of ink, of organic washing and cleaning, of soap. And you know what's interesting about this is that all of them have huge market on the African continent. Huge market on the African continent. So we definitely must do something as far as this is concerned. Let me tell you why palm oil is important. Palm oil is produced by many states for example, in Nigeria, many states in Nigeria. And what's interesting also about it is that this same palm oil is not provided by any state in Nigeria. It has a lot of value chain. It has a lot of opportunity in the value chain. So when you look at the value chain, you see amazing opportunity in the value chain of palm. You see amazing opportunity in the value chain. From the palm itself, you can get palm oil, crude palm oil, CPO, and palm kernel oil, PKO. Crude palm oil, CPO, and palm kernel oil, PKO. Already that you can get from this product. And so when you break it down, talking about the opportunity that lies within it. The PKO has its own uses. This crude CPO have its own uses, both in the food industry, cosmetic industry, and oleochemicals. So, for example, in the food industry, like I said earlier, industrial frying, ice cream, confectionery, salad dressing, vegetable, Gouda, butter, supplement, and condiments. Cosmetics, soap, candle, detergent, even skin-based pharmaceuticals, oleochemicals, surfactant, agrochemicals, lubricant, grease, cleaning products, ink. Even livestock, the palm kernel itself, the protein that is left after you remove the oil, the protein that is left, 22% protein for livestock. For livestock. For livestock. So both in the food industry and also in other industry, palm oil is of huge importance to us in Africa. So I think palm oil is what we can do is to grow more palm oil, palm tree, and look for improved variants. Look for improved variant. Research showed that the optimum yield of a palm tree occurs from year 1, it grows to year 12. From year 12, 13, the peak is around year 12, 13, 14. From 15, the yield begins to go down. The yield begins to go down. The yield begins to go down. I'm talking about the yield ton per hectare. It can actually get to 24 ton. 24 ton per hectare. 24 ton. And then begin to go down. So by the time you are getting to year 25, it is recommended that there should be need for replanting. So if we get the right yield, the right seedling that can produce good yield, that might help us a great deal. That might help us a great deal. So remember, so who are the major importers? Nigeria import palm oil. Can you imagine? Even though can you imagine? Can you imagine? And of course, the trend line shows increase in consumption. Who are the competing exporters? Cote d'Ivoire, the country to beat. Ghana, another country to beat. Kenya, another country to beat. Uganda, another country to beat. Mauritius. This Kenya, Uganda, and Mauritius are not even on the on the radar as far as production is concerned. But guess what? Guess what? They are a major exporter. They are a major exporter. And Nigeria being one of the also exporter. So for me, I think strongly we have a good opportunity in palm oil. I think strongly there's a good opportunity in palm oil for Nigeria. I think palm oil is something we must look at. I think palm oil is something we must consider. I think palm oil is something that you can consider. I think palm oil is something that you can partner with companies to produce for you, or you produce yourself. But I think the $4.91 billion of import being done on the African continent for palm oil is something everybody must consider.